Hello, this is my confidence interval for means presentation. I wanted to find out how many widgets high school students own. So I put a Google form out on social media and got all of this data. And I put it into tablet.com and in one quantitative variable and got my dot plot here and my summary statistics. So what I'm going to use from this is I need to know that there were 35 in my sample. The mean was 5.743. Standard deviation of this data is 1.915. So I'll use those in a little bit. So what I'm doing is I want to find my parameter and estimate my parameter using a confidence interval. I want to estimate the parameter of mu, which is the true mean number of widgets high schoolers own. And I chose a confidence level of 95%. I'm going to do a one sample t interval for mu. Check the random condition. Yes, I randomly sampled my peers on social media. And then my normal distribution, do the central limit theorem. Since my sample size n was greater than or equal to 30, it was 35. We can assume that the sample distribution will be normally distributed. So my confidence interval, I'm going to take my sample mean. I'm going to add and subtract to it my critical t value times my standard deviation. So my sample mean from earlier was 5.743. My sample standard deviation was 1.915, but I need to divide that by the square root of my sample size. So here's where I did that. I divided by the square root of 35 and got about 0.3237. To find my critical t value, I needed to know my degrees of freedom. Degrees of freedom is n minus 1, so I took my 35 sample size, subtracted 1, got 34. On the table, the closest number below that would be 30. So I looked at 95% and degrees of freedom of 30, got about 2.042. So I took my sample mean, 5.743, add and subtract to it my critical t value times my new standard deviation, and ended up with 5.082 to 6.404. So I can conclude that I'm 95% confident that the interval of 5.082 to 6.404 captures the true mean number of widgets a high school student owns. So I wanted to check this on Statlet. So I have all of my data here on one quantitative variable. All my data I put in there, I got my graph. I could also do different types of graphs. There's a histogram, there's a box plot, there's a stem plot. That looks terrible, so that's why I went with the dot plot. And I keep scrolling down here, and I'm able to do an inference procedure. I was able to click down to one sample t interval, put in my confidence level, did perform inference, and I got very close to what I had, 5.085. I believe my value was 5.082. So just a couple decimal places off, and that's probably because when I found my t value, I had to round down from 34, my degrees of freedom, down to 30. So Statlet's able to do that a little bit more exact than I am. And then so I threw that on my presentation here, and I got very close. So I did a good job.